welcome to the Untitled Podcast. This week, episode number 21, just off the back of Chris and me doing a draft review, which probably was uploaded yesterday if you're watching this on Thursday. What we wanted to do is get the group together, discuss in a bit more detail. So as always, I'm joined by Conor and Chris. Henry can't make it once again this week. Hopefully he's back again next week. So guys, just initial thoughts. Chris and I obviously talked. I don't think you really know what we talked about, Conor, but we kind of went through the best and worst draft classes and took a look at those. Any quick thoughts initially from the draft? For you, Conor?
Draft, yeah. Who had a good one? Whoever took Patrick Surtain. Had a fantastic draft. So the Broncos, you would say, but no.
Yeah,
I mean, I really like, and I know this is there on. Like, it comes later in your schedule.
Let's go to it
for this week's pod. But from a Cowboys point of view, I'm actually really happy with what we've turned around and done. It's exactly what we needed to do. Was just focus on the defense and just fix it. See if what can we do to make changes and strengthen where our weaknesses were. Obviously, we missed out on what looked like was going to be our top target, which explains a lot as why we ended up picking at 12. But I think we've still got a great linebacker, and it looks like that's added pressure to Van Der Esch now, because they've said that they're not going to extend him for the 5th-year option, which is interesting to see whether that's just more of a get your acting gear, or whether it's we actually just don't need you because you keep getting injured and we don't want another Sean Lee for a longer period of time. So it's exactly what we needed. So for us, I think it's a good like draft class at the moment, just based on really, really aggressively addressing the areas that needed fixing.
Interesting, Conor. I mean, I'll be honest. We slammed the Cowboys. Like, I know I led the charge, significantly led the charge on that front.
Of course, any opinion I have, you just decide. You know what?
Yeah. I mean, I just hate the Cowboys. So that's it. But yeah, you're right. Definitely, they got burned at 10. Traded down and then picked Michael Parsons and then claimed he was their pick all along, which was a funny storyline, which always seems to come about. I don't know how these NFL teams always manage to get the player they wanted, but somehow they all do, and they all tell us that's exactly who they wanted.
Can you imagine if they ever turned around and just said, "Nah"?
Yeah. They only do that when they lose their job. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're right. I mean, if you take it from a Cowboys perspective, I see it, but yeah, it just felt like a lot of missed picks from my perspective. I like Jabril Cox, and I like Israel Mukuamu, round 6 cornerback, who's like 6'4", 6'5", and really long corner you like to see. I know people have been already saying he could be a safety. Hopefully they keep him on a boundary, in my opinion. But yeah.
I don't know the full fact in it, but from what I understand with a lot of the picks is that we have a lot of bigger players in the defense now, in terms of height and size. So that's definitely more, I suppose. Yeah. And again, I don't know the validity in it in comparison to some of our old defenses, but apparently we have really strengthened and looking to, I suppose, make it a more physically, at least, daunting prospect for people to come up against. No one likes a high ball against against someone double their height. So
yeah, and I think the Cowboys they addressed the defense, which is what they needed to do. Even at the start of the year and the whole way through, we could see the offense with Dak Prescott was firing on all cylinders. On course for a record-setting yards. So they've done the right thing in terms of addressing the defense, and I think they've only picked up maybe one wide receiver, but obviously the receiving core there is really good.
Yeah.
So did the right thing in addressing the defensive needs, but I think we discussed it the other day that definitely got burned with not picking a cornerback there first.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that was always going to be like it was the predicted thing, wasn't it, for the Cowboys? We were going to get a corner. That was what it was going to be, and then you kind of get into that situation where you're not going to get the guys that you want. And obviously, it was a shock. Like, didn't we do a prediction a couple of weeks ago where you said that you worried that Farley would be the first cornerback to go, and he drops all the way down to, like, what was it, 22?
Yeah.
In the end, so obviously at the end of the day, the teams really didn't rate him in comparison for a strong cornerback, but who knows?
Yeah, we saw quite a few people slip because of health concerns. Obviously, COVID's not helped any teams assess players, I'm sure. But yeah, good point, Connor.
Yeah, so I think I think it's interesting. I think the idea looks like it's just creating competition where like, and you see it again. You see it. I know I'm always the one who says these sorts of things, but it's creating that competition that create success in sport all around the world. As soon as you've got stronger players on your bench in football, in European football, then straight away you start to look like a stronger prospect as a team. And I think it'll be the same now as well. Like that starting group will definitely be strengthened by probably a more competitive, some hungry younger rookies coming in as well. And also the potential of people losing places and stuff like that. Like, I know Anton Woods got let go today, so we've already dropped a defensive tackle from the team, from a veteran. So I just think it's really interesting to see what they're looking to try and do, because that was the clear, and as Chris said, it was the very, very clear like poor part of our team last year, which was our offense had no issues at all. We were scoring touchdowns wherever we wanted, with options everywhere to be able to score a touchdown. We've got a great attack, but the defense was just equally as leaky to let everyone else's like offense look amazing.
Yeah. So yeah, obviously that was what they saw too, Connor. Yeah.
Yeah, and it'd just be interesting to see, how people will now come in and compete for spots, because there was probably a little bit of complacency somewhere along the line of some of the defending players being able to just hold their spot no matter what. I know that's not really the mindset in the NFL, but that also does happen, doesn't it? If you've not got someone pushing you day in, day out, then, like, as an athlete, are you going to be performing to like maximum capacity? And you do see it, and like I said, you do see it in sports all around the world, that someone can quite easily come and take your place if they are performing better than you.
Yeah, competition never a bad thing. And you mentioned it, Caleb Farley. That was one of our draft predictions beforehand. Do you want to know the results of how we did? Out of 8, our highest scorer was Chris with 3 correct.
Beautiful.
Yeah, Connor got 1, and I kindly gave myself 1.5. So I look forward to a debate about whether that half point was justified. But
what have you given yourself a half point for?
Just to beat you.
Yeah, that was it.
Literally, that's what it sounds like. I wasn't there for one pod, but it's just all out of control.
Yeah, I'll recap what it was, so
okay.
we can then adjudicate. So, wide receivers in the first round, we were off to a really good start. Chris and I both said 5 wide receivers went in the first round. Connor said 4. Then we were talking about the team to take Kyle Pitts in a draft spot. None of us got that correct. It was the Falcons at 1.4. Closest was me, Bengals at 1.5. Connor, Dolphins at 1.6. And Chris, Lions at 1.7. That wasn't the half point. 0 points for that one for everyone.
I thought I said Falcons.
I didn't write that down.
I thought I said Falcons, but the lowest I could see him going was the anyway.
All right. Well, you get 4. You get 50% if that's the case.
Fantastic.
Let's see what happens afterwards. But then we had how many successive QBs from 1.1. Chris said 3. Correct answer was 3. Connor and I both said 4. 0 points again. So Connor is still on 0. Chris is now on 2, maybe 3. I'm on 1. Then first cornerback, and we all said Caleb Farley. How wrong we were. It was JC Horn. Then the first.
No, I don't think any of us would have got JC Horn though. I think I was on the fence of Farley or Satan.
I mean, if I was drafting, I would have picked JC Horn.
Not at 8 though.
Yeah, not at 8, not there, but I did like him a lot. But I agree. But yeah, then a first O-line taken, Penei Sewell, which both of you got correct. I got Rashawn Slater, so I was wrong. So Connor is now at 1, even with me at 1, and Chris is now 3/4. So that's where Chris maxes out, and that's where Connor maxes out. Then this is the half point. All right, we said, will anyone trade up for a quarterback? And if so, who? Yep. So I said New England and at least one more, and then discuss Chicago later. However, I didn't clearly state Chicago was my team at that point. So
I see now why you've given Chris the 0.5 for potentially mentioning the Falcons.
No, I think that's fair, because I'm pretty sure that you did say the Bears, and when that happened, it does. I had another think about it, and it does fit the mold that the Bears were looking for, as in trying to go for Russell Wilson, trying to go for Deshaun Watson, another young, athletic, mobile quarterback with a good arm in Justin Fields. I'm happy giving. Sorry, Connor. I'm happy giving Josh happy giving an extra point for that.
I'll happily settle for a half. But yeah, thank you, Chris. I guess we put you as judicator there. But yeah, then Chris's guesses were New England and Washington football team, and Connor just guessed New England. Then everyone had a go at guessing which quarterback San Francisco would take, and we were all wrong. It was obviously Trey Lance. Chris and I both guessed Justin Fields, and Connor guessed Mac Jones. So yeah. Not a good innings from the pod.
No, to be honest, other than Chris, I don't think me and you can count ourselves as either a winner or a loser.
Oh, definitely. There's only one answer. It's loser. Even if there's a marginal gain of 0.5, it's still
maybe just knocking on the door.
5 out of 8 is still poor. Yeah. So yeah, that was not a good performance by the pod. Anything which, really in hindsight surprised you guys about that?
I think we just saw a few players just drop, and that led to other players not being taken or not being taken. I think it was surprised that Trevor Lawrence didn't go. I think he was actually the third safety that went, and he was being ranked as the top overall safety. So I'm not actually sure why he ended up falling. It was interesting to see Rashawn Slater fall as well. We just mentioned him, and that was only to 13, but he was up there for debate to be the number 1, as you said, with Penei Sewell. So that was kind of interesting, just to see a couple of people fall. Obviously, Caleb Farley, you talked about health concerns, and also Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah as well. The linebacker, he ended up going to the Browns, didn't he? So really good steal. I think it's come out, we saw earlier, about some medical concerns as well. But surely he's worth taking a punt on, that talent.
Yeah. These are those are typically the picks which we look back on and we're like, why on earth did they fall?
Yeah.
And okay, health concerns, but it seems like time and time again, teams don't take those players and they overperform. Well, they perform to what was expected. Like look at La'el Collins. He didn't get drafted at all because they had these concerns about whatever he'd done in his personal life, which I understand why an organization shouldn't and doesn't want to, and I applaud them for not taking someone who's got, I think it was domestic violence against him, accusations at that point. But it burns teams. We see these people fall for whatever reason, and I agree. Teddy Bridgewater was another one, heart concerns, and he goes same issue with Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. Only difference is he plays quarterback, so he falls to 32 or whatever it was, not the third round. But yeah, and obviously JC Horn, big surprise, none. Yeah, definitely there too. There were a lot of things we weren't expecting. Linebackers were messing us around all over the place. Some interesting trades, and where teams obviously saw value, trading back in the first round for the Ravens, for example. They got they got the pass rusher, Odafe Owe. previously known as Jason. We found out that was his middle name, and he doesn't want to be called that anymore. But yeah, it was an interesting draft, and a lot of things caught us off guard. But the other thing we talked about last episode was some of our favorite players that we just wanted to highlight before. So I thought I'd recap through mine, where they went. We didn't really touch on too many of these, Chris, when we did our initial review. So first one was Rondelle Moore. He went to the Cardinals in round 2. Really interested but scared to see him play for Arizona, obviously division rival of the Seahawks. Connor, do you think that's like the ideal scenario with Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins and Christian Kirk and that offense, Larry Fitzgerald as well?
Yeah.
Yeah. You're happy with that? Would you consider taking him in fantasy?
I'm not going to talk about fantasy yet.
Doesn't want to give away any tricks. But, yeah. But it seems like a good spot, right, Chris? You learn from Nuke Hopkins and learn from Larry Fitzgerald, and that team. Like, that's a great spot for a rookie wide receiver.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know if there's been any news on what Fitz is going to do. Because I wasn't sure he'd announced whether he was staying on. But if you're looking for a receiver to learn from, you're looking for those experienced names. You're looking at Julio Jones. You're looking at Nuke Hopkins. You're looking at Devontae Adams, people that have been around and done it. And especially with Kyler and his explosiveness, if he can stay fit, obviously had some shoulder injury and sort of midway through the season, sort of dipped a little, but if he can establish himself next year or even towards the end of this year as a viable option, that could be really exciting to watch in Arizona.
Yeah, thanks for catching me on Larry Fitzgerald. I'll have to look that up. But yeah, I definitely think if he didn't retire, there's a good chance he has. But yeah, sure. Yeah, he probably did. But yeah, so Rondelle Moore, good spot for him, definitely. Other name next on my list was Eric Stokes, who went to Green Bay. Obviously, Henry's not here. I know he probably wanted a wide receiver, but they were probably all gone by that point, except for Rondelle Moore anyway. So, you get Eric Stokes, the super athletic cornerback, I think, definite upgrade, right, compared to Kevin King. Chris?
Didn't they draft 2 cornerbacks in the first few picks, or am I making that up?
You've delved more in depth than I was going to at that point. They also drafted Keith Taylor.
It was later on they went cornerback.
Yeah. But Keith Taylor was a great pick too. Again, from Washington, similar to Kevin King. Comes out without the production the same way. Not recording many picks, but yeah, a shutdown corner nonetheless. So definitely great value for them at cornerback in this draft. I think they had a really good draft, a team I wanted to talk about in a bit more detail. But, Eric Stokes brings super high upside to that defense already. Then the next one was Rashad Bateman. Baltimore picked him, 1.27. I think that was definitely a good pick. You've got to start giving some weapons to Lamar, and free up Hollywood Brown, don't you think, Connor?
Yeah. That's what he needs. He's almost like, he's got so much potential, doesn't he? But he's just always in. He's always in coverage, and he's the target, and he just needs to be a little bit, almost like a release that you see from some of the best wide receivers around. Is that you need that coverage to not be as easy on them.
Yeah.
So they can be stopped. But yeah, for sure, it'll be great for him, and then also for Bateman as well. So yeah.
I think they've drafted Bateman to come in as that big body, so almost the alpha in that receiving core. Obviously, you've got Mark Andrews, tight end, who just gobbles targets, but Hollywood Brown he's never been like that dominant big body receiver. I think having Bateman come into the team now, if he can get up to speed quickly, he can be that slot player, that short distance target, and that gives Hollywood the chance to be that down the field stretcher and use his elite speed. So it depends if Lamar Jackson has learned how to throw.
Yeah. There's a hot take. Connor looks offended by that statement, but before Connor jumps down your throat, it's an apt analysis. Whether Rashad Bateman becomes wide receiver 1 or not. The thing is, you now need to punish teams and force them not to set that safety over the top, who's now keeping Hollywood Brown in double coverage whilst they're playing a bit deeper, and Mark Andrews doesn't have the speed to threaten the way which Rashad Bateman does, on top of his size and athleticism.
I think at that point as well, like, is it even like wide receiver 1 as in the books as wide receiver 1? But I think you can see so many like diverse like outlooks now as well, can't you? Like, we're seeing it with the Seahawks, the Cowboys. Like, obviously now we've built a great core of receivers who I think we've had plenty of discussions on over the weeks of. There's no wide receiver, like, they're all wide receiver 1. So who do you target? And like, these two now, like exactly what Chris was saying, they serve 2 different purposes, and they're both wide receiver 1 in their own respects. Like what we saw with Juju and Antonio Brown as well. So that both of them served such different purposes for the team, where they could both perform from it because they were both elite receivers at the time. And then you see Antonio Brown leave, and Juju's the only one left who can perform at a high level at that point in time, maybe for a year. And his performance dips massively because he is a clear wide receiver 1, whereas like what teams should be looking to build, and what it looks like the teams looking to build is a core of receivers who all serve their own purpose as a like technical wide receiver 1.
Yeah, it's that diversification of weapons. We saw the Rams, Seahawks, and Cardinals obviously picking up Rondelle Moore, all take that speedy, nifty, smaller wide receiver just to strengthen what is already very deep wide receiver locker rooms. And you're right, Connor. The thing which the NFL has shown recently is that they can sustain 2, 3 fantasy relevant wide receiver 1s, as it were, in each team. So yeah, I think it's going to be super interesting to see what happens with Baltimore. Definitely the pressure's back on Lamar. Build off what happened last year. Let's see them make a deep playoff run for the first time in his career. The other name on my list, and now we kind of get into the more later round picks, was Tuba Hubbard. He went to the Panthers. We spoke about him, Chris. Great spot. Sit behind CMC, get a chance to break off some runs, maybe be a kick returner. I don't know what they're going to use him for. Chuck him in a couple of 2 running backfields and just give him the decoy opportunity where defenses have to pay respect to his speed. So yeah, great spot for him to learn and have a chance at some good carries. And the other one is Keller Monde, who again we also spoke about briefly with the Vikings. What a super spot for him. A team that's kind of probably already looking at Kirk Cousins going, we can do better than this. And now if he goes into camp and he has a great camp, good preseason, he could be week 1 starter. I mean, it would take a lot, but we saw it with Russell Wilson when he came out in the 3rd round. It could be there. I know my opinion of Keller Monde is very high. I don't know what you guys think about that. Connor, do you think there's any scenario where he could be a week 1 starter for the Vikings this season?
You really hate Cousins, don't you? But...
It's a bit of both. Love for Keller Monde and
I don't think we're no. I don't, not at all. You can
Shut down.
Shut down.
They didn't do it with like Justin Herbert, did they? Like, it took them like 2 weeks to chuck him in. Obviously Joe Burrow's got it, but I don't think so. Not at number 66.
I think the caveat though there with Justin Herbert, there was the injury to Tyrod Taylor, so he was forced to come in. I can't see Kirk Cousins not being the starter unless there's an injury. Excited to see what Keller Monde can do. I know you've sort of bigged him up, and I think Henry was a fan as well. I can't see him taking the starting job because I think it's going to be a truncated off-season period again. Still a bit of there's more training, I think, this season. Obviously, with COVID last year, it was all kind of voided. So interesting to see how much actual sort of OTAs there are able to carry out, especially with the rookies. We've already seen how it affected the combine and pro days, etc. So Interesting to see. And if he does become a starter, you're looking at Justin Jefferson having a more mobile, more athletic quarterback. Young pairing, could be in the league for years.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm pleased you brought Henry up because I now get to chuck the absentee under the bus. But he was picking up Jamie Newman pre-draft, and he went undrafted. Keller Monde, who was my guy, goes in the third round on a team where maybe they're looking at him to be the starter. But you guys made great points. Even teams who take first-round quarterbacks nowadays understand the value in letting them sit for a year, not chucking them in straight away. So yeah.
Just to jump in on that one, Justin Fields, do you think he's the day one starter, or do you think he overtakes halfway through the season for Andy Dalton, or do you think he sits the year?
I don't think he's the day one starter for sure. I think if he either he comes in sort of a la Ryan Fitzpatrick tour, where they've designed that they want to get him some exposure midway through the season, a non-pressure point, which it actually was for the Dolphins. But either they designed for him to come in mid-season or he comes in year two. I don't think he starts year one.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. I think Andy Dalton is experienced. If Justin Fields comes in and wows everyone, then yeah, he's definitely got the shot at being the best quarterback on that team this season. But I don't expect him to be day one starter at all. Connor, do you have any thoughts on Justin Fields there?
No, I think because the Bears are so quick to name Andy Dalton the QB1 as well, I don't think you can do that. Like, I don't think they would want to do that. And just immediately pick someone, then within 3 months make him QB1 without even giving the current QB1 the chance. So I think, he's one of my favorite picks. I absolutely love that from the Bears. Like, I think he's a great QB for them. But it will potentially be riding on the success of Andy Dalton, and if he can change things, and if he can't, I probably have no doubts that Justin Fields will impress from quite an early stage and will be able to get that chance early if Dalton can't start winning them games.
Yeah, absolutely. It puts more pressure on Andy Dalton as well, and puts him in this spot where he becomes a mentor. So I think it benefits everyone, doesn't it? You take that quarterback, and the only downside is the added pressure of being such a hyped up quarterback who everyone kind of thought of as 1.2 for so long, to then go to a franchise who's been stuck in quarterback purgatory for how long? That's the only thing which worries me about it.
I think he's got a great deal there, though. Like Justin Fields, like honestly, he's got like. It's just for him. It just makes so much sense because he's probably like, this isn't the worst like franchise in the history of the NFL. They've got a good history. They've got a base to be able to build from, great fan base, great city, like everything about that. He can go and really be the one who turns it back around. I think he's got such a great. There's potentially a great story in the making for him. Like obviously everyone's loved him as well because everyone watched QB1, and everyone watched him and everyone loved him on that as well. And like he was like, I was talking to someone about him the other day as well, and like when I was watching it, I was like, he is, although they hyped up the other guy on the show, like Justin Fields was by far the best quarterback there, and we've all loved like that story of him coming up and through, and now he's going to do it, and hopefully we'll see him play this season. Whereas on the other side of the coin, you've got a really strange story for Trevor Lawrence, don't you? Because I was reading earlier that he has never lost a game of football, like in any level. Yeah. So obviously like discounting like Little League and things like that, but he's never lost a regular season game in 4 years of high school and in 3 years of college. He's obviously lost in playoff stages, but it's like there was like it's just a strange story for him. His first game for the Jags could potentially be his first ever career loss,
and his second, and his third.
Yeah,
that's a bit harsh. That's really interesting though. I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
But then that's like the other story on it, isn't it? It's like obviously Trevor Lawrence is will be great for the franchise, and what everyone's hoping it will be great for the franchise for a long time coming. But also, there's that little bit of like, I'm going to lose at some point, right? Like, you've got to. Whereas I think for Justin Fields, it's like he's got the potential to raise the team, and he's got that. Like, and I'm not saying Trevor Lawrence doesn't, but this is just me being a big fan of that of that Justin Fields pick, because I think he's a great player.
Yeah, there's not many players who can go in the top 15 of a draft and still justifiably have a chip on their shoulder for not being picked where they feel like they should. So, you know, what an opportunity for him. Yeah, we're definitely rooting for him. We, you know, evidenced by the fact that we all kind of, you know, made a case for the fact he should go to the 49ers at 3. The other thing which I want to talk about just quickly is Kyle Pitts. You know, we made a point about him at the start, and the Falcons took him at 1.4, which for all of us, I think is a bit of a surprise. Obviously, Chris claims to have said that, and yeah, probably did. But, you know, in reality, it just seemed weird that no one traded up to 1.4 to then take Fields, and Falcons either didn't entertain any calls or just didn't receive any for it and just knew they wanted Kyle Pitts. I mean, interesting spot all around. Obviously, they equally decline Hayden Hurst's 5th-year option. You know, 2-part question. One, do you think that's the best spot for Kyle Pitts? And the second part is, do you think that was the right move for the Falcons? I'll start with you, Chris.
Good question. Is it a good spot for Kyle Pitts? Yes, definitely. Matt Ryan, throughout his career, is, for the best part of it, sustained, as we've already mentioned, multiple attacking options. Julio, Calvin Ridley, Hayden Hurst, and now Kyle Pitts. So I think he would definitely get good opportunities from a good quarterback as well. Did they do the right thing in not trading down? Oof. I think with somebody like Pitts, all the pre-draft analysis, all of the reports are saying this guy is a can't-miss talent, a generational talent, arguably one of the best tight ends to come out of the draft in X number of years. So, did they need a tight end? Probably not. I quite like Hayden Hurst. He does a solid job. He's not amazing, but I quite like his story. I quite like what he brings to the team. But I don't think they could have passed up on him. You know, such a hyped up player who's destined, it seems, to do so well. I don't think they could have passed.
Yeah, good point. You know, for me, sorry, I'll go in a second. Sorry, Connor, same question to you. First of all, Kyle Pitts, is it good for him? Second of all, was it the right move for the Falcons?
I think it's good for him. It's a well, he goes into a strong, like, group of players. Like, obviously what Chris has mentioned, you're in a really strong receiving core there. But I don't think it's the best move for the Falcons, and I would probably say that because I just think they would have needed a quarterback, and I think that's what we were all expecting. I think they need to start looking at that phase of how can we, or I thought they would have needed to be looking at the phase of how can we eventually replace Matt Ryan, and is this the draft class to do it? I don't know what the QBs coming out in the next 2 to 3 years look like, and if there's any strong promise of someone coming down the line in a couple of drafts, which they've got an eye on already. But obviously they traded up, and if they've traded up, I would have thought that they would have gone for a quarterback who could begin that sort of spark moving forward. And maybe they were looking to not phase Matt Ryan out just yet, and then would you waste one of those talents? Is that what they were thinking? But I think maybe Kyle Pitts would have been a better option if he was maybe in a year's time for the Falcons, and maybe he was a better fit at a different team, where I think he could really be a standout rather than another part, because he obviously is a standout. Like you said, he's a generational he's a generational talent, which is what he's been like pitched as. And obviously we've all watched some film of him as well, and he looks incredible. But I suppose there was other spots for him to fall where he could be the star, which is. But it'll be interesting to see how it pans out this year.
Yeah,
because he could still be the star, and he could cast a shadow over Julio Jones, and who knows.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing is, and it's such a good point you both raised. First is they could have traded down, maybe got a lot more value for it. Second is there was a top-level quarterback on the board which they could have taken instead of him. But not often a team with Matt Ryan as their quarterback gets the chance to do that. The thing which scares me is we all look at Kyle Pitts and we all think he's this incredible athlete, which, I really don't doubt that he is. However, if you look back over the span of NFL drafts at what we've all thought these generational NFL talented tight ends are and how they've panned into the NFL, it doesn't work that way. Look at Eric Ebron. He was viewed as much the same. Evan Ingram, the thing is how much does one tight end transform your offense? And the answer is very little. It adds an easy dynamic, helps the offensive coordinator look well, but it looked good, sorry. But yeah, no, I agree with what you guys have said. Great opportunity. Excited to see what happens. But thanks so much for tuning into the pod. We'll look forward to catching up with you again next week.